As we still preaching from Mark, I just want to remind you about last week. Last week we talked about the story of the woman who begged Christ to get the healing for her own daughter. And then the second story was about the man who could not speak, who could not also hear. And we talked about Christ's love and just Christ being really walking in the water in the eyes of the crowds. He's doing many miracles, things going well. And if you continue read in chapter 8, you will find more miracles. But our section today, we're focusing on a different one. But today focusing on the declaration of the Messiah and what that means. So in chapter 8, verse 27, we start with the on the way to Jerusalem. Jerusalem is not just a place that Mark wants to mention it. Jerusalem has a very different meaning. Jerusalem is a place of suffering, is a place of Christ being on the cross. All the bad things happen, but the greatest things also happen in Jerusalem. When Mark wants to remind you, if you want to look at Christ's mission fulfilled in a geographical place that called Jerusalem. So on their way to Jerusalem, getting closer to Jerusalem, every time Mark wants to remind you that Christ closer, one step closer to Jerusalem. Jerusalem is the bad news and the good news. It depends on which side you are hearing, which side you want to pick. And today we're going to walk with these disciples, try to avoid judgment, try to avoid too much celebration, try to pretend that we're going back 2,000 years, thinking in the context of what they have, not after what we know now today as Christian. So on their way to Jerusalem, Jesus asked his disciple, very big question, who do people say I am? Good one, but it's very good because it's just he's talking about what people are saying, what's happening on the street, what is the social media saying about me, you know? So everybody can say anything. You can even lie if you want, because you don't say it's me saying that. It's whoever saying that, and you are not accountable at all. So Christ made it easy, say, what is on the street? When people are thinking about this guy who's making miracles and doing amazing things, what are they saying? And in verse 28, the answer was easy. Okay, the first one, with no effort, they didn't even need to talk a time. The first guys come to their mind is the Baptist. And I hope you did not get tired of, since I started this job, is how much I talked to you about Christ and the Baptist for many times in many ways. But it is really to show how the Baptist was so powerful and so great, to the point he can be a great competitor to Christ. So it's easy one, okay? The Baptist is bringing that he is the one that's in the center of the modern day, in their context, the Baptist. But if they want to go back to the past, then they bring another guy named Elijah. And I hope that you still remember these lessons from the Sunday schools when you were little children about this guy who did amazing things, who prayed to open the sky for rain, who prayed for the sky to stop the rain. He's very famous for many things. And the most famous thing, he's the one who was taken into heaven alive. So he's a character by story, but whatever he did. So is anybody wants to compare to be how great he was, you just need to borrow back the character of Elijah. Elijah is a big guy with a big question mark. But he's unique, but because he's still, according to the story in the Torah, he was taken alive. In other words, he did not really tasted death yet. And this character is we do not know that about any other human being. So then they brought somebody from the time that they lived in, the John the Baptist, and then they brought the other guy, Elijah, from the past, but nobody can forget what the Elijah did in the past. And others who really do not know much, they are not so educated, they are not into religion, they are not connected with what's happened, It's easy to always remember about we are waiting for the promised prophet. There is somebody's promised will come. Yeah, we have hundreds of prophets came to us for the Jews, but there is one will come and be special to give us what we want. So if you cannot know the Baptist, if you do not know Elijah, it's easy to fill the blanks, say you are one of these prophets that we are waiting for. And then we move forward, and Christ is really not being easy. And he said, yeah, I know that's what they're saying, but now it's your time. What do you say? It's always easy to say somebody else said that. What about you? So I imagine that Christ is really, it's not in the text, but that's my imagination. It's like Christ is looking at their eyes. You know, in the beginning was a very general conversation to anybody, whoever wants to put their hands up and answer with no pressure. But Christ made it very personal, and he wants to talk to them and say, you, not the one next to you, not the one in the neighborhood, not the one who wrote something on the social media, but you. What do you say about me? And this was really very hard. But it's not hard for the guy that we know he's very quick to say yes to anything and get himself in troubles in many ways. He's the good one that if you want to say, I want somebody to do this, he will be the first one to say me, you know? If he's the one that will tell you and surprise you. But this kind of quality of his personality, it's also that will get him in trouble later when he will deny Christ, when he will be a different person. But let's, before judging and jumping into, and there is millions of stories and sermons done about Peter, either to really judge him or try to find a justification for how he can declare something that is an amazing when he say, you are the Messiah. So let's talk about what is the Messiah. Let's focus on the subject itself. The meaning of the Messiah according to Jewish tradition. The word Messiah is simply the Greek word for Christ, you know, and we say it sometimes Christ, Jesus. So Christ is the translation of the word Messiah. And Messiah is coming from the Greek, that's the Greek word is Christ, but really in Hebrew is mean Messiah, or Aramaic Mashiach, which mean actually anointed, and even close in the word in Arabic is Yamsah, anointed somebody. So you bring the oil and bless them. Who are these people to be called the Messiah? Who are these people who are supposed to be anointed or blessed or putting their hands on you? They were the kings, the priests, the prophets. So all these people with special gifts from God, they are called anointed. So according to Jewish tradition, Christ is not from the royal family. Christ is not being active politically, try to throw out the Romans who are controlling our country, who are really taking away our religion. We cannot practice our Jewish tradition freely. So we are waiting for a Messiah to throw these bad guys, all the bad things, and take us back so we can be in power. This is a very normal, traditional way. So Peter is representing a different understanding. From the outside, he made a great revelation. You are the Messiah. That's wonderful. Great. Everybody can clap for this guy and say, you did an amazing thing. But I wonder if we have a time to say, what do you mean by that, Peter? And then you get into that deeper when we go into the conversation where Christ is trying to tell that do not tell anybody. It's not really because Christ wants to keep it secret, but simply Christ say, you are in the beginning of understanding. You may say something, but you do not fully understand what that means. You may declare something big or something that even I glorify you for what you said, but really, you are mentally and spiritually, you are not there yet. So when Peter is saying that, he's saying it as a good Jew, that you are the guy that we've been waiting for, and I'm pushing you in the right direction. You do not know yourself, Christ. You are a good guy. You can do actually better than that, you know? The Messiah is a big character, is very powerful, and can do many things. You just need to, you are so cautious, you are so wise, and so kind of like laid back. I just want you to just put fire in you, Christ. We are coming closer to Jerusalem. So Jerusalem in Christ's mind versus Jerusalem in Peter's mind. Jerusalem in Peter, it is the capital. It is the right place to start a revolution. It is the place to start to get more crowds and get more monumental thing that you can actually push these bad rulers, either the corrupted Jews who work with the Romans or the Romans who are occupying our country. But Christ is talking about a different kind of Messiah. Yes, Jerusalem is a very important place for me. But Christ is going to shock them, but giving a different understanding of this Jerusalem. When Christ warned them not to tell anybody, which is not new. You see that in Mark many times when he say, do not tell anybody. And against that, everybody will know. So that's been kind of like a repetitive method in Mark that Christ will say, keep things secret, and instead of that, say everything on the social media there. Everybody knows what happened. So in verse 31, Christ delivered bad news to his disciples about the suffering and the death of his own life. So this is really strange, like you think about after this big declaration of Peter saying, you are the Messiah, that Christ will be happy and this will be a party for the students who really stood up to what any teacher will dream of. They are beyond expectation. But instead of that Christ is delivering a very sad, bad news and not celebrating what really just been said by Peter. And then after that, then I think Peter really was bothered much. Peter felt like he failed. I pushed you, so you better be understanding why I told you you are the Messiah. And Peter took him aside, friend, I don't want to really insult you in front of all these people. Let's talk in a private way here. Let's have a friendly one-on-one conversation and talk to Christ. Well, what you said was not really correct. You need to revise. You need to re-edit what you just said. Maybe you did not mean it this way. That's why let's work more on your speech, Let's work more on your words. I think you mean good, but I think you did not phrase it in a good way. Let's work on your grammar, on your words, and how to use things in a good way. So Peter talked to Christ in a private way to correct what he just said when he talked about the Son of Man has to suffer and crucified and died. And if you go back, the whole text is really very straightforward. The last word in this verse 31, he'll say, and will arise. So everybody's stuck on the idea of death, suffering, all the bad news, but nobody pay attention to this guy is going to be resurrected. So Peter talked to Christ in a private way, and in verse 33, there is a lovely way. I think Mark is so smart about. He's like, I feel like he could be a good movie director. Like he wants to create an image in front of you. He's not just giving you words, but he wants to give you, imagine the scene, like if you are watching a movie, and what do you see? In verse 33, he say a lovely thing. He say, Christ looked as his disciples first. I imagine the conversation based on what Mark said. Peter took his guy, he's talking to Christ and say, well, let's talk on the side. So now the conversation is between Christ and Peter on the side. The other disciples left out of the scene. And Peter is saying something is really tempting. Peter is trying to celebrate the powerful way of being strong and throwing people away, and not this suffering, these silly ideas about being suffering and doing all of that. No, you need to show your muscles. Christ, do you have a muscle? You need to show them. So it's in many ways, the human part of Christ is tempting, to be celebrated this way. And then as Christ is talking this way and listening, maybe there is some temptation happen, but as the Mark is saying, like he turned around and looked at the rest of the disciples. He looked at them and he saw them as like sheep with no shepherds. So in this way, as he looks, he reminded himself of what I am doing here. I'm not here to be taken to my own personal, to celebrate my own power and my own self-indulgence. I'm here because of these people. So in a very dramatical, in a very good way that Mark's trying to say, as he looked at them, he was reminded of why I'm here. I'm not here to make everybody happy. I'm not here to please you. I'm not here to meet only your mind expectation and what the Messiah should be. You have the right to draw whatever image you want to draw. And how many times we are really like this? How many times we are really want to draw about who is the Messiah for you? The Messiah is the guy that will take away my disease, The Messiah will give me a good body and always sharp mind and will solve all my problems. This idea of the Messiah that's come and makes you a winner of everything. And that is actually against what's in the text when Christ is talking about what's the meaning of winning and losing? What's the meaning of having something or let go of something? So then Christ started to draw an image of him saying, I did not just come sit in an ivory tower and say, my disciples, if you want to be my follower, just go and do this, you have to suffer. And I'm sitting there in my clean clothes and I have a good life and living a very luxurious, lavish life. Christ is leading truly by example. He's going through the suffering to say that I'm not preaching that. I know it. I've been there. So Christ is saying, if you are a true follower of me, then you want to understand how to follow me. So the Messiah is in your mind. If Christ is coming to you today and asking, what kind of image you want to draw about your Messiah? Is a Messiah looks like a big guy with big muscle, sitting in a big tank on a big fighter jet or something like that, or maybe sitting in as a CEO of a big bank that can give you everything you want and can write you a check for all of your needs? Or Christ could be a guy that's maybe sitting with you in the moment of tears and just holding you, and sometimes looks like he's powerless, and maybe he's crying with you. He's holding you. He's hugging you. He wants to create a story with you. He wants you not to say what people say, what the church say, what the pastor say. It does not matter. God is not making a theology exam to say, did you get the doctrine right or wrong? He does not care. He cares about your heart. What's really not about what the whole world say. It's about you. Are you in relationship with God and with Christ? So when Christ say, who I am to you as a person. Christ wants you to write your own personal story. Do not pretend. Do not cheat. Do not go into the AI to have an article about who Christ is. Christ wants simple, sincere words that's written with your blood and with your tears and with your sweat and with your journey. And that makes your statement is powerful because it's not phony. It came from your whole life story. And as we live, the story is not finished. And as we live, the story is an open end. We are writing our story about how do we understanding the role of the Messiah in my own personal life. Amen.